The year is 39 AD. The most powerful legislative body in the ancient world, the Roman Senate, sits in stunned silence as their emperor announces his latest appointment. Not a distinguished general, not a seasoned politician, a horse. His name was Incitatus, and according to Rome's most notorious emperor, he was about to become a consul, one of the highest offices in the empire. Was this the act of a madman, a calculated insult, or something far more sinister? Today we're diving into one of history's most audacious crimes against political order. When Emperor Caligula didn't just mock the Senate, he made them bow to a beast. I'm your host, Chris, and welcome back to Crimes of the Crown, where we uncover the most shocking scandals that rocked history's greatest powers. In today's investigation, we're traveling back to Imperial Rome, where absolute power didn't just corrupt, it completely unhinged one of history's most infamous rulers. Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, better known as Caligula, ruled Rome for just under 4 years. But in that brief reign of terror, he managed to bankrupt the empire, declare himself a living god, and commit what many historians consider the ultimate political crime: the systematic destruction of Roman dignity and tradition. And at the center of this political chaos stood Incitatus, a horse who lived better than most Roman citizens, and who nearly became more powerful than the senators who had once ruled the world. But was Caligula's favoritism toward his four-legged friend mere eccentricity, or was it a calculated assault on the very foundations of Roman government? Stick around because this story has more twists than a chariot race, and by the end you'll understand why some crimes against the state can be more devastating than any assassination. Our story begins not with a horse, but with hope. You see, when Caligula ascended to the throne in 37 AD at just 24 years old, Romans actually celebrated. The previous emperor, Tiberius, had been a paranoid recluse who left the empire in the hands of his brutal advisor, Sejanus. Caligula represented a fresh start, young, charismatic, and beloved by the people. In his first months, Caligula seemed to prove their faith justified. He freed political prisoners, recalled exiles, and distributed generous bonuses to the Praetorian Guard and the people of Rome. The empire's coffers were full and the future looked bright. But then something changed. Whether it was the intoxication of absolute power, a severe illness that affected his mind, or simply the revelation of his true nature, Caligula began to transform into something Rome had never seen before. The first signs were subtle: expensive games that drained the treasury, bizarre public appearances where he claimed to speak with the gods themselves. But nothing prepared Rome for what came next. You see, in the heart of Rome stood a stable unlike any other. This wasn't just a place for horses, it was a legitimate palace. Marble stalls, purple blankets, golden feeding troughs, and in the center of it all lived Incitatus, whose name meant swift in Latin. But Incitatus wasn't just any horse. According to the Roman historians Suetonius and Dio Cassius, this animal lived like legitimate royalty. He had his own house, his own servants, his own furniture made of ivory and gold. He drank wine from jeweled cups and ate oats mixed with precious metals, which neither sound very healthy for a horse if you ask me. Romans watching this spectacle might have laughed at their emperor's eccentricity, but they weren't laughing for long, because Caligula wasn't just playing with his pet. He was making a statement. A statement about power, about respect, and about who really mattered in his empire. While Incitatus dined on delicacies, ordinary Romans struggled with rising taxes imposed to fund Caligula's extravagancies. While the horse slept on in silk, Roman soldiers went months without pay. The message was clear. In Caligula's Rome, a horse's comfort mattered more than human dignity. But Caligula's obsession with Incitatus wasn't just about luxury, it was about humiliation. You see, the Roman Senate, despite being under imperial control, still represented the last vestige of republican dignity. These men came from Rome's oldest families, traced their lineages back centuries, and considered themselves the guardians of Roman tradition. And Caligula absolutely despised them. He saw them as relics of a dead system, obstacles to his absolute authority. And so he set about systematically destroying their dignity in the most creative ways possible. He forced senators to run beside his chariot for miles. He made them worship him as a god. He appointed his freedmen to high offices while ignoring senatorial candidates. But his master stroke was yet to come. Picture the scene. Caligula enters the Senate house, but he's not alone. Behind him walks Incitatus, adorned in a purple toga, the symbol of senatorial rank. The horse's hooves clip against the marble floors as senators watch in horror. And according to historical accounts, Caligula announced his intention to make Incitatus not just a senator, but a consul, the highest elected office in Rome, traditionally held by the empire's most distinguished leaders. The moment had arrived. In front of Rome's most powerful men, Caligula stood ready to commit what many considered the ultimate political crime, the complete mockery of Roman governmental tradition. "Behold," Caligula declared, "your new consul." The horse stood there, decorated in the purple stripe of high office, while senators sat in stunned silence. Some sources suggest the appointment was actually completed, others claim it was merely threatened, but the damage was done either way. In that moment, Caligula had achieved something no foreign enemy had ever accomplished. He had made the Roman Senate, the institution that had conquered the known world, a laughingstock. The message was unmistakable. You are so worthless that I would rather be advised by a horse than by you. But this wasn't just an insult. It was a declaration of war against the very concept of Roman dignity. And like all declarations of war, this would have consequences. News of the horse consul spread throughout Rome like wildfire. In the markets, citizens whispered. In the taverns, they joked nervously. But in the shadows, something more dangerous was brewing. Conspiracy. The Praetorian Guard, the emperor's own personal bodyguards, had watched Caligula's descent into madness with growing alarm. The horse incident wasn't just embarrassing, it was dangerous. How could Rome's enemies take the empire seriously when its leader preferred the council of livestock? The Incitatus affair was the tipping point, but it wasn't the end. Caligula's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He claimed his horse spoke to him. He insisted that foreign dignitaries bow to Incitatus. He even allegedly planned to move the capital to Egypt so he could worship himself as a pharaoh. The investigation into what happened next reveals a carefully orchestrated plot. On January 24th, 41 AD, just 4 years after taking power, Caligula was assassinated by his own guards. The official reason? Protecting Rome from a tyrant. The real reason, though, many historians believe the horse consul was the final straw. And what happened to Incitatus? With Caligula's death, the horse's extraordinary life came to an abrupt end. The new emperor Claudius quickly dismantled the elaborate stable and returned the horse to ordinary life. But the damage to Roman dignity had been done. So what are we to make of this bizarre chapter in history? Was Caligula truly insane, or was he a calculating tyrant who knew exactly what he was doing? The truth, as always, is probably somewhere in between. Modern historians suggest that Caligula's appointment of Incitatus as a consul was likely a threat rather than a reality. A sword of Damocles hung over the Senate's head, but the threat itself was the crime. By even suggesting that a horse could do their job, Caligula had committed an act of political vandalism that echoed through the centuries. The story of Caligula and Incitatus teaches us something so profound about the nature of power and respect. When a leader loses respect for the institutions that support them, when they prioritize personal whims over public dignity, they don't just damage their own legacy, they damage the very foundations of government itself. But what do you think? Was Caligula's horse consul the brilliant political theater of a calculating dictator, or the delusional act of a madman? Was it a crime against dignity, or just an extreme example of imperial privilege? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this dive into ancient political scandals as fascinating as I did, be sure to like this video, subscribe to Crimes of the Crown, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation into the dark side of history's greatest powers. Next time on Crimes of the Crown, we'll be discussing the story of Queen Christina of Sweden, whose rejection of royal norms and personal intellectual pursuits led her to give up her crown, causing a succession crisis. Until then, remember, power without accountability is just tyranny with better decorations. This has been Chris with Crimes of the Crown. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.